Well, since you asked, usually I get $5 a bag.
What?
That's right.
$5 a bag? I don't think so.
Look, you asked, I told you.
You got some nerve trying to take advantage of us.
All right, look, we're late. Thank you very much.
You're lucky I don't report you.
Come on.
JFK, Honolulu.
But I don't want to be a
secondary character.
Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year.
Welcome to another episode of But I Don't Want to Be a Secondary Character, and welcome to the year 2021. My name is Ivan.
And I'm Stephen.
And hopefully, mate, this is a much better year than last year. We got, we're at the tail end of Bidwabask. We got probably another 10, maybe 15 episodes max, man, and we're done. I think we're finishing in March, right?
Yeah, I think it's March 17. It's supposed to line up with the same date that we started this podcast in 2017. So it'll be 4 years if it all works out correctly.
Yeah, well, we'll make sure it kind of works out. It'll be poetic if we do finish on that day.
Yeah, we'll force it. We'll make it happen.
We'll make it happen, indeed.
Yep.
We hope you've had a really good holiday in the last couple of weeks. I know it's been tough for a lot of people around the world, especially today they've announced in the UK that they're going back into lockdown.
Yeah.
Believe it.
Yeah, it just seems to be a lot of countries not being able to catch a break.
No.
You know, they sort of get a few good days and then they go back and then it's just all over the shop. I mean, in Australia, the cases have re-emerged. Nowhere near as much as America or Europe, but yeah, it's just every day is a bit of a trepidatious affair.
We hope we have provided you with some comfort over these last couple of weeks regarding, you know, depending on your situation, whether you've been at home or you've been able to go out or whatever it is. So we hope you're enjoying it. If you want to reach out to us and say hello and, tell us what you've been up to during this Festivus, Christmas, New Year's period, bidwabaskpodcast@gmail.com is our email address. And you can also find us on social media at BIDWBASC. But Stephen, we aren't really talking about the New Year today. We're talking about something or a place rather that I haven't been to for probably at least a year, maybe a year and a half, the airport.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to a underrated episode, I'd say, from season 4, episode 12. The airport.
Yeah, how weird. Like these days, we're doing an episode about the airport and it's called the airport, but it's something that you and I haven't been to for a long time. And it kind of makes me cringe with those scenes in Coach where everyone's sitting shoulder to shoulder. It kind of makes you cringe looking at that, doesn't it?
Yeah, COVID-19 has given everyone a different perspective on personal space and personal, I guess, customs and routines.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you think things will be different going forward. So yeah, it looks strange looking back for sure.
Absolutely. I know it's really weird. Like obviously it was different back then, but it just kind of, it makes me a bit weird inside.
And just how easy it is for Kramer to get on the plane as well. Like pre 9/11.
Oh yeah.
I mean, airport security, it wasn't super lax, but like I'm just reminded of Die Hard when he's able to take a gun on board, even as he's a cop. So they have a few more, I guess they've got a bit more leeway in terms of carrying arms and stuff. But taking a gun onto a plane pre 9/11, it's just so weird. I mean, smoking in airports, it's just, different time.
Yeah, and it was the time when terrorists in films were all Europeans.
Yeah, just vaguely European.
Vaguely European, like Americans playing, or British people playing European.
Yeah, pan-European. It's kind of German, kind of Russian, kind of just European, Eastern European, sort of whatever.
Bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Anyway, you can also follow our Facebook page, Seinfeldisms, one of the largest Facebook pages in the world. Yeah, we put up memes and you can put up quotes and anything Seinfeld related in your lives that have happened, much like our Seinfeldism segment. Go to Seinfeldisms and check it out. We have over 110,000 members now.
116.
Whoa, it's really ballooned since Christmas, hasn't it?
Yeah, so up until I think mid-October, just before the elections in America, Facebook seemed to change their algorithms and we weren't really getting any new members for nearly 2 months and it was quite concerning. And then about a week before Christmas, it just started ramping up again out of nowhere. So our guess, we've never gotten an official answer from Facebook. I've reached out to them twice and they've just given me very generic answers. I don't think I'm even talking to a person.
No, I don't think so.
But the only thing I could make sense of, or that made sense to me, was that they changed their algorithms to stop misinformation and stuff about the election. And then once that was sort of all settled and done by mid-December, then they turned them back onto what they were.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that made sense.
Because now we're getting hundreds of requests a day, just like the old days.
Well, I think in the last week we've gotten 6,200 new members, which is by far, but the previous record before that was maybe 3,500, 3,600. So it's bigger than it even was, which is an amazing start to 2021. So join the fun.
Indeed. Join the 6,200 people plus.
Be 6,201.
Yeah, do it. Be our 6,201st. That'll be great.
Yeah.
speaking of Seinfeldisms, my friend, which we normally start with every episode, what Seinfeld-related things have happened to you in the last couple of weeks since you've been here?
So I had 3 occur to me since we last recorded just before Christmas. I was listening to a podcast episode of a podcast called Axe to Grind, and it's a podcast done by 3 musicians in America, and they talk mostly about hardcore music and sort of hardcore subculture and hardcore history and stuff like that. And their episode, I think it came out December 22nd or 23rd, was called A Hardcore Festivus. And it was basically their year in review and all the things that they didn't like about 2020.
Okay.
And it was a very long episode, as you can imagine. So lots to dislike in 2020.
Yeah, it's been a very, very interesting year in our lives, for sure.
Yep. Well, my second and third Seinfeldisms occurred. I was just in Adelaide for a 4 or 5 day trip over New Year's, and they both occurred yesterday, being the day that we travel back. So on the way back, we were going a more indirect route from Adelaide back to Melbourne, and we noticed on the map, my partner and I noticed on the map that there's a small town in Victoria called Elaine.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't know much about Elaine. Well, I don't know anything about Elaine other than it's called Elaine, but definitely a Seinfeldism.
Great.
And the second one is we stopped, or I should say the third one, but the second one that happened yesterday, we stopped in a really small coastal town called Robe. It's in South Australia. And there's an old prison, what do you call it? Like, not wrecks, but like ruins, like an old sort of colonial prison. And it's got a lot of like engraved names, you know, like blah, blah, like Ivan was here, or you know, Jerry for Elaine or whatever.
Right.
And I noticed one of the names engraved in there was Milos.
Milos.
M-I-L-O-S.
Beautiful. After his tennis career, he moved to Adelaide for a quiet life.
Yeah. A coastal town. Became a fisherman.
He was like a wild card in the Australian Open in like 1991.
Yeah, and he stayed here.
He went to Adelaide for a little trip, or maybe like a pre-tournament, competition, and he's like, I love it here.
I love Robe so much, I'm going to stay here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good for him.
And when I saw it, I was walking around the prison ruins, and I quoted to myself, another game for Milos. And my partner, who is a Seinfeld fan and does get most of the references I drop, said, what? What are you talking about?
She didn't get it.
And I had to explain, the episode. She remembered the episode, just not that particular line. But
and now you're going through a separation. So
of course, yeah. I've already started proceedings.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, after we record, I'm going straight to the courthouse and annulling all of it. Done.
Reason doesn't understand Seinfeld.
Exactly.
That's it. That's a very fair reason.
That's the first reason in their list of reasons.
It is.
It's like doesn't like Seinfeld, doesn't understand Seinfeld, irreconcilable differences, doesn't like Seinfeld, doesn't like Seinfeld.
That's right.
It's 4 out of the 5 reasons.
I think so, yes. Yeah. Anyway, my Seinfeldism, it's not actually from me. It's actually from one of our fans who emailed us, Holly from Canada. She's also one of our Patreon subscribers. So, hey, Holly, thank you for your contributions, and thank you for emailing us. She emailed us just before Christmas while we were on break. She says that the following Seinfeldism happened to her just before Christmas, and I quote, I chipped a tooth yesterday. How, you ask? I bit down too hard on the fork. It's hard to believe with so much biting experience a person could still make a mistake like that. And she says something like, love you guys, thanks for all you do.
Oh, thank you, Holly.
Yes.
And that's a great Seinfeldism.
It is. And besides Holly for being on Patreon, we also like to thank our current subscribers, Nakia, Jeff, Neil, and Dan. So they're paying $2 US plus taxes every month, and they're getting bonus content, Curbcast, our Curb Your Enthusiasm podcast, as well as Season 11, which we're going to release Episode 1 on Friday, January 15 to all of you. But you can listen to the first 6 episodes on Patreon right now. So sign up if you don't like waiting.
Yeah, thank you so much for your support, guys. We really appreciate it.
Indeed. Now, Seinfeld news, buddy. Now, I could imagine there's been a few articles on our break, but how many do you have this week?
Only 2. It was a bit of a quiet period, a quiet Festivus period for Seinfeld happenings. The first one, though, kicking off 2021 with a bit of drama. The app Cameo gained quite a lot of popularity, especially amongst celebrities. In 2020, it's offering them an ability to generate an income during a time when, acting gigs are harder to come by. And I think it was like the last week of December, maybe just before Christmas, the Cameo CEO did an interview. And during that interview, he said that Larry Thomas, who played famously the Soup Nazi in that episode, made in 2020 over 6 figures. He didn't reveal a specific figure. And, it was quite a lucrative income source for Larry, which is great. It's good to know.
Yeah.
And in response to that, a couple of days later, Larry Thomas was interviewed by a publication called Page 6, and he expressed that he was quite unhappy with Cameo CEO, exposing that he made so much money off the app. And he did go on to say that the CEO, and by the way, his name is Stephen Galanis, had reached out to him personally and apologized for sort of, divulging personal details. So a tiny bit of drama, but, all's well that ends well.
Quite understandable too. I mean, you don't want your income being broadcast.
No.
All over the internet. It's quite understandable.
Yeah, it's private for most people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a bit of drama to kick off 2021.
Oh, it is. Well, good on Larry. At least, I'm really glad, because a lot of actors, they might have played one role many years ago and then they're not really doing doing too well financially, or maybe they've peaked already and they're not getting roles. But at least Larry is one of the only actors I can think of who's kind of utilizing his famous role, and he's still using it today and still making pretty good bank. So he's being very smart with the persona and the character.
Yeah, he's definitely taking advantage of it. And I think the good thing is that it provides a stable income.
Yes,
and he's still
very stable, 6 figures.
Yeah, not too bad.
More than stable.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
And I mean, 6 figures could be 100 grand up to nearly $1 million.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. 999,999.
Yeah. I'm going to guess it's lower, but still pretty good.
Still pretty good.
Yeah, for doing, you can watch a lot of the Cameo videos that he does on YouTube. A lot of people post them up, and it's basically the same thing. He's sort of got not totally scripted. He does change it according to the purchaser's request. He'll change it to a birthday or an anniversary or whatever it is, but he's kind of got it semi-scripted. So, if he just does 1 or 2 of those a day without really even thinking and just mentioning whoever's paying for it, not a bad gig.
Plus, he's played the character so many times.
Yeah.
It's verbatim to him.
Yeah, he wouldn't even need to sort of turn on the acting brain. It just comes out. Mm-hmm. And because half the cameos is not in character, he's just talking like a normal person, and then he turns the Soup Nazi on and off throughout the video.
Your sister had one done, right?
Yeah. She did actually.
Late last year. Early last year.
Yeah, my brother-in-law got one for her for her 40th, which was in July last year. Yeah, and it's again very similar. 90% the same, and then he just changed her name and a few of the personal details. Yeah, so not too bad. Second bit of news, and this is sort of a good, I guess, interview to read if you're trying to sort of change a few things about yourself or trying to get into the typical, early January bettering yourself mode for 2021. We'll see how long it lasts though.
We'll see.
Yeah, Jerry, just before Christmas, appeared on a podcast episode with the Tim Ferriss Show. Tim Ferriss being a very famous podcaster, also the author, I think, of the 4-Hour Workweek and those sort of like motivating self-help type books. I think he used to be a tech guru as well, so he sort of falls into that kind of category.
I still need to outsource all my stuff.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss recommends. Yeah. And Jerry obviously talked a lot about comedy, the comedic process, but they did get into sort of personal development and motivation and all the things that helped Jerry. And interestingly, he revealed that he regularly practices, even to this day, transcendental meditation and weight training. So in the interview, he talked to Tim about that. He talked about how he got into weight training in the 90s, and that was just to help him stay focused and stay fit, especially while putting the long hours in during Seinfeld. And that transcendental meditation really helps him with his comedy, because, a lot of the time comedians are sitting there trying to write jokes, and it's quite exhausting for them mentally because they've really got to sort of scrutinize their brain for the best material.
Of course.
And transcendental meditation helps him focus and sort of, keep centered and keep the creativity flowing. So yeah, we'll put a link to that episode as well as the previous article in our show notes. And if you want to check that out, and get motivated and maybe pick up some new habits for 2021 and be like Jerry, then it's all there.
Yeah, if you want to outsource all your menial tasks to somewhere in India or Philippines or wherever, and do that too.
Yeah.
That's what Tim Ferriss recommends, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I haven't actually read it, but I've heard bits and pieces over time.
Yeah,
and outsourcing is one of his main pieces of advice.
It is.
Yeah, so a bit of drama and a bit of motivation for 2021.
Oh, God, what an omen or what an ominous way of looking at 2021.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's take a really quick break, my friend, and when we come back, we are talking about season 4, episode 12, The Airport, and its interesting secondary characters.
Hi, this is Zach and Aaron from Seinfeld Law, and you are listening to But I Don't Want to Be a Secondary Character.
The Airport first aired in the US on November 25th, 1992, directed by Tom Chirones and written by Larry Charles, one of my favorite writers in Seinfeld.
Yeah, no, he's one of the good ones.
Yeah. In this episode, Jerry and Elaine are on their way back to New York, but learn their original flight has been cancelled. As a result, Jerry ends up being in first class and Elaine goes to coach. While Jerry has a wonderful flight with food, champagne, and a beautiful blonde model as a seatmate, Tia, played by Jennifer Campbell, Elaine suffers through the flight from hell. Back in New York, George and Kramer are supposed to meet Jerry and Elaine, but the change in flight and then a change in airport has them running all over the place. More mayhem ensues when Kramer thinks he recognizes someone from his past, a guy called Grossbard, played by Alan Wasserman. Other secondary characters are Scott Burkholder, he plays the prisoner, Dick McKenzie plays a security guard, Maggie Egan plays a ticket clerk, and one of my favorite characters in the episode, Mark Christopher Lawrence plays the sky captain, the guy who deliberately sends Elaine's bags to Honolulu.
Honolulu.
JFK? Honolulu.
He's great.
He is. Actually, some interesting trivia about the episode, Steve. Larry David, he does the voice of the man who orders the kosher meal.
Yeah, no, I noticed that. It's pretty recognizable.
Why didn't you say something?
I ordered it 6 weeks ago.
6 weeks ago, I forgot. Love it. What trivia do you have?
The the writer you mentioned, Larry Charles, he actually makes a cameo in the episode. He is credited as the stinky man. He's the man who exited the toilet when Elaine cops a whiff and has to hold her breath.
Nice.
Yeah, that weird-looking man, the tall man with the long hair and the cap. That's actually Larry Charles.
It's Larry Charles. Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yep.
Lovely, lovely. In this episode, George makes a reference to the film, the 1962 film, I should say, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. George's line in the airport shop to the prisoner, I guess the serial killer, but ye are, Blanche, ye are in the shackles.
But yeah, Blanche, yeah, in the shackles.
Yeah, Blanche, yeah, I was one in the shackles, is what Betty Davis says to Joan Crawford in the film.
Okay, apparently, yeah, they had a bit of a rivalry back in the day.
Yeah, they were full on like enemies.
Yeah.
Those two, yeah.
I always knew, like, I never knew what specifically that was referencing until we looked at the trivia for this episode. But even as a kid, you know, with this first episode, when I saw this episode for the first time in the 90s, I figured that that's obviously some reference to something old-timey beyond my sort of knowledge. But yeah, it was interesting to find out what it was actually for.
It was actually for, and yeah, I heard that like Betty and Joan would nearly get into brawls, you know,
Yeah.
fights during filming. Like apparently the filming of this one was like really tough.
Yeah,
'Cause,
right.
like, those two were together, I think, for like the first time or two, and they fucking couldn't stand each other.
Yeah.
So they're like, filming was a pain. So you could see like their characters really come out.
Yeah, I guess it would have paid off on screen.
Oh, I'm sure it would. I haven't seen the film, but I'm sure it was fantastic.
Huh.
Two dynamite performances, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. This episode, it was actually meant to have Elaine with a passenger who dies next to her, and it was actually inspired by another writer or producer from the show, Joan Van Horn, which actually that happened to her. So she was on a flight and someone died in front of her, or died next to her. But the writers probably thought that was too dark, so they went with what they went with at the airport.
I think it makes a bit more sense.
Yeah.
Yep. Another bit, the last bit of trivia I have is that it was an unused bit of scripting and an unused idea is when Jerry and Elaine are at the ticket desk figuring out who's going to be in first class. Initially, they were going to do that. I don't know what the game's called. It's like an American thing where you go like, you sort of say 1, 2, 3 and you hold out fingers.
Right.
It's like shoot 'em or shooting or something like that.
It's almost like rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. But they were going to do that to figure out who got the seat, but they thought it was better if Jerry just sort of acts selfishly and is like, I'll take first class.
Yeah, because Jerry's arrogant because he says, I've been on first class.
Yeah.
You haven't been on first class. I know what first class is.
Yep. And there is another scene. I think it's Jerry and George. They're trying to figure out who should get something and they do that shooting thing. So I think it would have been a bit old if they did it again.
It would have been a bit of a, an old time game.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, enough about trivia. Let's get into the airport's secondary characters. Shall we start with Tia Van Camp?
Sounds good.
She's played by Jennifer Campbell. She's known for appearing in the TV shows Boy Meets World and Baywatch. She's also appeared in the next episode of the series, The Pick, and in the character montage in the pilot part 2, that is the season 4 finale. Now, we talked about Tia quite a bit in the Pick episode, and we get introduced to her obviously in the airport. She's obviously in first class. I'm guessing she's flying to New York probably for a fashion shoot, or she's from New York, because in the next episode she actually does a shoot for Calvin Klein.
Yep.
Yeah, we find out. So I'm guessing she's probably from St. Louis or something, and maybe she flew to New York to do the shoot. Is that what we said, something along the lines
I
of
can't
that?
remember specifically, even if we talked about where she was from.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't think when we were talking about The Pick, I don't think we realized that. I think we probably mentioned she was in this episode, but not where she was coming or going.
Sure.
So I think we just assumed that she was working and living in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume the same.
Yeah.
I mean, she's obviously a very popular model. There's paparazzi waiting for her when she is departing the airport. So I would assume that, there are models who are famous in the modeling world, and then there were models who are famous sort of outside into pop culture, like Elle McPherson or Cindy Crawford. I don't think she's that level of famous, like a supermodel. I think she's somewhere in between where she's famous amongst sort of the fashion modeling world, but she's also got a bit of general celebrity outside of those worlds, thus the paparazzi.
I mean, if she was around in the modern day, she'd be like an influencer. She'd be on Instagram. She'd
Probably,
be TikTok. She'd be doing all that crap.
Yeah, she'd be a social media model maybe.
She sure would.
Or a model that was made famous by social media. One of those two. And the point I was getting to was that I think it would make sense if she was living in St. Louis. There's probably not a lot going on in St. Louis in terms of fashion and modeling and stuff.
Yeah, very
So
true.
maybe she's from there. Maybe she was back there just visiting family.
Yeah.
Or maybe there was a job there. Maybe there was a location that was St. Louis specific and she just went out there for a job. But I would assume that if she's sort of at the peak of her modeling career, it would make sense for her to be in New York, even if she's not from there.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's living and working in New York at this time.
Yeah, my guess is like she did, like I'm paralleling your ideas here. I think she's probably from St. Louis, and maybe she's always grown up doing modeling, even like as a child. She would have done like pageants. She would have been like, I don't know what the competitions are. She would have been like Miss Teen St. Louis or Miss St. Louis or a contestant.
Yeah,
she might have tried Miss America once.
She could have also done like acting, anything with in front of an audience.
Yeah, and maybe Miss America she represented. What state St. Louis? Is it Missouri?
St. Louis is in
Let me have a
That's a good question.
Let me have a look. Since the election, I've forgotten where everything is.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, that's where Michigan is. That's
Yeah.
where this is. Yes. But a week later, I'm like, where's St. Louis? In Missouri.
It is
So there you
Missouri?
go.
Okay.
So I'm guessing she probably represented
might have been Miss
Missouri.
Missouri?
Yeah, Miss Missouri, or she represented Miss Missouri at Miss America.
Yeah.
Or teen pageants,
Maybe,
whatever.
maybe she competed against Miss Rhode Island at some point.
Yeah, maybe.
They've got it. Imagine if they had a rivalry.
Yeah, they did.
Boys, girls.
Pies. Yes. So I feel like it's not something she just slipped into. I feel
No.
like it's something she's been doing.
No,
since
she
was a
seems
kid.
very comfortable being a model. She's
Yeah.
very self-assured. You know, the stereotype is that models are very like insecure, and they're models because they seek the validation of others. They like the attention. But you know, she seems very confident. She doesn't seem like a typical, I hate to say it, but the stereotypical sort of, especially in the 80s and 90s model.
Yeah.
Yeah, she seems very self-assured, confident. She's got a really, not arrogant, you know, she's happy to chat to a perfect stranger, Jerry, even though Jerry's very charming. She's not sort of, she doesn't see herself as above him.
No.
She's impressed by his knowledge of nothing, which most people would probably not be impressed by. They'd be like, I don't care. Why are you talking about Sundays?
I'm guessing most of the guys she meets are probably like airheads.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. I mean, Jerry, he's not dumb. He's not an intellectual man, but you know, he's witty, he's charming, he's funny, he's different, he's interesting. So yeah, I think Jerry is a bit of a different type of guy that she would typically meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I think she's just one step away from being like an Elle Macpherson or Cindy Crawford or Naomi Campbell, like those like, you know, super famous, uber famous supermodels. I think she's one, you know, if there are levels, I think she's one level below them.
One or two down from that.
Yeah, I mean, she's appearing in a jeans ad, you know, it's probably Levi's or Wrangler or like a famous American jeans company, in Esquire, which, you know, only top brands tend to advertise in Esquire. That's the magazine that she appears in.
Yeah.
So she's obviously in big budget shoots, you know, big budget ad campaigns. She's not just sort of dealing with lower or smaller level or medium level fashion brands and budgets and stuff. So she's right up there.
And plus, she's got to shoot with Calvin Klein in the next episode.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
even bigger.
Yeah, and like she's got paparazzi. You know, Seinfeld is a famous comedian in this world at this time, but he doesn't have paparazzi.
No,
so,
he doesn't.
Yeah.
There you go. But yes, we do talk about her also in the pick. So go back to that episode. We did that last year sometime. And I think it was maybe early last year, late 2019 maybe. Just go back, or you can search the pick in your feed and find it.
Yep.
And we talk about Tia in full, or even more detail in that episode too.
That's right. One thing I wanted to say before we move on is that I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but when it kind of cuts back, you know, a common sort of comedic dynamic in this episode is the differences in treatment between Jerry and Tia in First Class and Elaine and her rude passengers and flight attendants in Coach. And there's a scene where it cuts back to her and she's halfway through a story that she's telling Jerry about a creepy photographer. I think she says that the photographer says, you know, you've got to cover your breasts. And she's like, I thought this was an ad for shoes or something. You know, what have my breasts got to do with whatever we're...
No, you've got to put your breasts together.
That's right. Yeah, you've got to squeeze your breasts together.
So it's like some perf.
Yeah, and when she's telling the story, she's not telling it in a way... She doesn't look disgusted, like, oh, this she's just telling it as just this random story.
She's just really naive sounding almost, doesn't it?
I was going to say she just sounds... I mean, I'm sure she didn't have a good time when that happened, but she seems quite well adjusted, and I think that's a reflection of her professionalism.
Yeah.
And just her being very good at what she does. She's sort of, you know, even the creeps don't bother her.
Yeah.
She doesn't let the creeps rattle her.
Yeah, you're right. I feel like it was something along the lines of, oh, I've seen it before, or when I was younger, you know, I didn't know what to do in those situations.
Yeah.
But now I look at it and I just laugh and I'm like, oh, you're an
Yeah,
idiot.
it just seems
you know?
to be water off a duck's back.
Yeah.
As opposed, when she was recounting the story to Jerry, she didn't seem like she was bothered or creeped out by it.
Yeah, true.
Initially, she probably was, but now, after the fact. And I think that's, just a testament to her experience, professionalism, and just her personality.
And her clout in the industry, too.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, she's a tier or two down from, like, the supermodels of the time.
Yeah.
So for her, you know, this is just like another day in the office.
Yeah, another creep, another photographer, whatever.
That's it.
Yeah.
One that I'll make sure there's blacklisted.
Par for the course.
Yeah.
Yeah, she knows that she's got the power.
She does.
So, yeah.
Indeed. Good for Tia.
Good for Tia.
Yeah, if Seinfeld wasn't scratching his nose that time, then who knows how far they would have gone.
She could have been the one.
They could have been a power couple.
Maybe.
Who knows? I mean, there's nothing else wrong with her, or, you know, Jerry seemed to like her.
I reckon Jerry would have eventually gotten jealous of her success.
I think so, too.
I mean, Jerry's pretty like comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah.
He's pretty good at like managing fame, even though he's not super famous. But you know, throughout the series, he does show signs of insecurity. So I reckon it eventually would have gotten the better of him.
Yeah,
and
there'd be something.
Yeah, he would have resented her level of success. You know, maybe he thinks that he should be at that level in his world, not. But yeah, there would have been a reason.
Yeah, and obviously with Seinfeld, like the longest girlfriend or the longest relationship he had was with Rachel Goldstein for like 3-4 episodes.
Yeah,
and that was a record for him.
Yeah,
so you know,
yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, even a successful, beautiful cool, smart, well-adjusted model wouldn't have lasted for Jerry. No, he would have found a reason.
Different worlds, different kinds of people.
Yep.
Anyway, let's talk about Kramer's enemy from 20 years ago, Grossbard. He's played by Alan Wasserman. He's appeared in the films Big, Suburbicon, and Cocktail, starring Tom Cruise. Can you believe it? He's also been in Curb Your Enthusiasm. He was in season 2, which we did for Curbcast for Patreon. He was one of the HBO executives.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Didn't even occur to me.
Not the main one, but one of the others.
One of the secondary ones.
The secondary ones.
Ah. Yeah,
I'll
right.
actually go back and look at it, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's him.
Huh.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Yes. He's also appeared in other TV shows that you like, including The Sopranos, as well as The West Wing and Gilmore Girls.
Okay, I'm trying to think who he played in Sopranos.
He was in one episode in
Okay.
season 6,
Oh, okay.
5, I think.
Probably just played a minor character.
Probably, yeah.
Right. Yeah, John Grossbard is his name. I like it
John
when
Grossbard.
it's my favorite scene in the episode when Kramer and George are, I think they're going from JFK and then they find out the flight's changed.
LaGuardia. Yeah, they're going to LaGuardia, and then they're going from LaGuardia to JFK.
Yeah. When they find it, and Kramer's like trying to remember him, he's like, "Who is that guy?"
Oh, no, that is JFK. That's
Yeah,
the scene
they
you're talking about.
initially they're going to LaGuardia and then I think they're going to JFK.
Oh, no, sorry. No, they're in JFK.
After they find out the flight's rerouted, they're on their way to LaGuardia.
That's right, yes,
And
yes.
Kramer's trying to figure out who he is,
Yeah,
and he's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
he's like, Grossbard, John Grossbard.
Right.
Just the way he says it makes me laugh.
I love the scene where they're going from LaGuardia to JFK. And they're like, oh, John Grossbard, the bell tolls for thee.
Yeah.
And then Kramer just guns it in the car. So good.
Puts his foot on it.
I liked, like, as a bit of a side note about this episode before we talk about him, I liked the dynamics between George and Kramer. There's not many episodes where they do things together.
Yeah, it's good to see them get along.
Yeah, and I like the chemistry between Jason and Michael, especially in the scene where they're heading to JFK in the first leg, and they say, oh, Kramer says, I'm off to the duty-free store, and they do like a little song about the duty-free store, and it's... Yeah,
How does the jingle go again?
Oh, so something the duty-free store.
Yeah.
Something the duty-free store.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's just...
Yeah, and they both sing it together. It's a nice moment.
It's a nice moment. I liked it. I liked the dynamic from them.
It reminded me of the very opening scene when Jerry and Elaine are on their way to the airport, and there's a bit of lighthearted banter between them.
That's
There's
right.
Well-natured ribbing, I guess, between friends. Jerry calls her a $10 hooker, I
Yeah,
think.
$10 hook. Give me
and-
$10 and you'll find out.
Yeah, and Elaine goes along with it, and there's a bit of personal banter between them. It's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, and you can see like even Jerry kind of breaks character a bit.
Yeah.
When Elaine says the $10 line, she's like, "Give me $10 and you'll find out." And Jerry's like, "Oh."
Yeah. It's like it's kind of flirty, but it's not. It's like harmless flirty.
Yeah.
It's not based on any residual sexual tension. It's just friends sort of giving each other a bit of shit, which is nice every so often.
Yeah, it was nice. But anyway, going back to Grossbard, I feel like he was probably, how old was Kramer at the time? Like late 30s, late 30s? And
Yeah.
he's a bit older than the others.
Yeah, I'd probably say 40 or
Ooh,
38,
yeah,
40.
38, 40.
So he would have been
Grossbard-
18 or 20.
So I assume Grossbard's probably around the same age, maybe 30s. Maybe.
He looks a bit older. I'm going to say early 40s. Maybe
Okay.
he was like 22, 23.
At the time, yeah.
when Kramer... Say Kramer was 18, 19 and Grossbard was 22, 23.
I feel like Grossbard probably had a really troubled life when he was younger. Like maybe he was into crime,
Okay.
like theft. He stole, like not organized crime, but he'd do like
Yep.
maybe he was probably in juvie or something. Maybe he fell on the wrong side of the tracks. And I feel like Kramer is telling the truth about Grossbard. He did steal the money. Like Kramer isn't like being paranoid or anything. Grossbard probably just took the money and fled. Maybe he was on the run, or maybe he owed loan sharks money and had to flee or something. I don't know. Something happened.
Yep.
And then now he's traveling with his wife. They're probably just going on a nice holiday, and I feel like he's left that past behind.
Yeah, he's at some point he turned a corner.
He turned a corner, yeah. And it's funny when they're in the duty-free store and they're looking at magazines. Grossbard kind of looks at Kramer. So Kramer says, that's Grossbard. And, that guy looks very familiar in the first time they see him. Grossbard kind of looks at Kramer like he does know him. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Like he kind of says, that guy, I know him.
Yeah, it happens twice. I mean,
Yeah,
they never say for certain in this episode whether it is John Grossbard. You just have to rely on Kramer's memory. And Grossbard, if it is him, he plays dumb or he genuinely doesn't remember Kramer on the plane. But I've got a feeling it is, because of that. Look, he sort of gives Kramer a bit of a double take and he looks a bit uncomfortable, a bit concerned.
Yes.
But it also happens at the flight panel as well with the information about the flights. When Kramer first recognizes him, Grossbard, as he's walking away, he comes up and he's like, oh, flight, whatever, leaving whenever with his wife. Come on, honey. And then they walk off. He looks back at Kramer and he sees Kramer looking at him.
So he knows who
I think
it
he
is.
clocks.
He clocks it.
I mean, maybe Grossbard doesn't recognize him the same way, Kramer's like, I know that guy, but I don't know who he is.
Yeah.
Maybe Grossbard's like, I know that guy. He looks familiar. And it takes him a while to cotton on.
Yeah.
But I think by the time he's boarded the plane and by the time Kramer comes on and, I like how he pulls his hair back and
Yeah,
gives him a
just-
side profile.
Remember this?
Like 20 years ago. Was it the corner of 18th and something street?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, give me your wallet. And he just reaches into his jacket. It's so good. I think by then especially with those details, like, Kramer looking at him, side profile, slicking his hair back, giving him a few details about where they lived, $240. All those details combined would have made him go, oh shit, this guy, I remember this.
Yeah.
And he continues to play dumb.
Yeah, and I left this life behind.
Yeah.
I don't want to relive these memories.
Yeah. His past coming back to haunt him in a way.
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously we don't know any more than him. I mean, we do rely on Kramer's testimony on him, and we don't see him again on the show.
But Kramer seems so certain, and he's willing to sort of follow him to different airports and board a plane. I think if you had any doubt, I don't think he'd go. I mean, it is Kramer. He does sort of latch onto his own ideas and really, really follow them through. But I think you'd have to be pretty certain to go that far to board a plane over a debt from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I trust Kramer's judgment. And again, the fact that Grossbard twice gives him some double takes, makes me think that it is him.
Even when Kramer says that he'll get refundable tickets, even George calls him out on it saying you're going to do all this just for $240.
Yeah, which is unlike George as well. The fact that, George is trying to encourage Kramer to just let the debt go is very unlike George.
But George wants the frequent flyer miles. He's like, oh, you take it.
Yeah.
And I love in a later scene how Kramer says, oh, George looks at the ticket and says, you get Super Saver tickets.
Yeah.
These are non-refundable.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
George, the lady talked me into it.
Yeah. Even after George specifically said, get these types of tickets, because I'll get
she talked me into it.
So dumb.
So
dumb.
Good.
The only other detail I had about Grossbard is if you pause the scene where he's in the duty-free shop and you see him with a book, you zoom in on the book or you look carefully at the book, and the only word you can make out is Bradbury. And I looked up famous authors in the 20th century who would have books at airports, and it came up with a guy, actually I didn't catch his first name, but whoever Bradbury was a well-known mystery and sci-fi author.
Oh, right.
It kind of reminded me of airport books by Dean Koontz and Stephen King. You see
airport literature.
Yeah, the paperbacks you see at airports. So, maybe Grossbard is just a sci-fi fan, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the only other detail I could really figure out about him. You don't know anything about him.
Or he just likes fiction in general.
Yeah.
He happens to be reading a sci-fi novel.
Yep.
At that time.
Because he's not just holding the book, he's holding it open. So he's interested enough to actually crack the book open and, give it a bit of a read or read the synopsis or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna guess he's a fan of that genre.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's good. But we don't really know any more about him. But I can only hypothesize that, he had a bit of a rough life in his 20s, probably got into some crime, low-level crime, and he took the money from Kramer, not to rip Kramer off, but maybe to get away from someone or something.
He probably figured it's better to have a debt with Kramer, who's harmless, than it is with, potentially dangerous person.
Yeah, a loan shark or whatever.
A bookie or a drug dealer or whatever.
Something along those lines. And he gave it up and found a woman, settled down, and 20 years later, he's living a normal life.
Yep.
He's left that past behind.
Yep, except for Kramer.
Who comes back to jog his memory.
And Kramer, after all that, still doesn't get his money back. He gets
doesn't.
escorted, and probably his name's on a list somewhere, like a no-fly list or something like that.
Well, the security guard grabs him, but it's funny how it's only one. We were talking about how lax airport security was pre-9/11. Only one security guard grabs him.
Yeah.
If it was now, there'd be 20 freaking air marshals grabbing him.
Yep. And airport cops and stuff. And
cuff him. He couldn't go anywhere.
And they wouldn't just sort of casually march him through the airport. They'd take him to a secure building and question him and who are you?
Yeah.
Have you got any weapons? Are you going to they'd interrogate him.
Of course. And it's funny how one guy's just loosely holding his shirt and Kramer gets out of it and he runs off.
And in a further demonstration of how lax the security is at the airport, somehow Kramer ends up on the tarmac, close enough to the planes to run. I love how Jerry looks out the window and he's like, no, couldn't be. He's just Kramer appears long enough for him to confirm that that's Kramer. It's not like he just flashes in and out once. He's there for 5 or 8 seconds. That's long enough to go. And Kramer is an unmistakable person.
He is.
And you would expect Kramer to be there because he expects him to be there when he picks him up. So the fact that he's like, no, couldn't be.
It could.
No.
All these good things have happened.
I know,
Isn't happening.
Yeah, this whole flight has worked out for me. Kramer, I mean, it doesn't really affect Jerry, but it's just so out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Very good. Anyway, let's talk about the prisoner. That's what he's credited as. He's played by Scott Burkholder. He's appeared in the films Con Air, Crimson Tide, and My Fellow Americans. Now, I was hypothesizing what kind of criminal he is, and I'm thinking because the fact that he's on the cover of Time magazine and it has the word court with his portrait on it, I think he's probably a serial killer who's been on the run for years, if not decades. He's probably one of those serial killers, because serial killers were so prevalent in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yep.
At the time when DNA forensics and stuff were basically non-existent or very in its infancy, so serial killers could get away with so many murders. I feel like he's probably one of those guys who's been on the run for 10, 20 years.
Yep.
Probably gone to different parts of America, slaughtered people, and then kind of moved on, one of those kind of things. So that's probably my guess why he's on Time magazine. I'm very surprised though that like this is my guess here, but I'm surprised that George didn't know who he was when he saw him. Like, would you think someone that notorious, you'd probably look at their, like, he's probably been on newspapers, TV for like years, and George would say, oh shit, you're that serial killer. You know what I mean? I'm really surprised George didn't know him.
I don't know, maybe the only photos before the front cover of Time were like older photos, maybe looked a bit different. Maybe.
Yeah. And he's aged like 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And then they got a tip off somehow and they finally got him.
Yeah.
You know, the FBI got him after.
Yeah, because a lot of the time, if you look at like the FBI's most wanted list, it's photos from like 20 years ago.
Sure.
And they digitally age them and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I don't know, maybe George just, I mean, there are tons of people in the world that are really famous amongst groups of people that I have no idea about.
Yeah.
It's just because I've never encountered those people in any way. You know?
Yeah, true.
So it could have been that. Who knows?
Yeah. Obviously, he loves reading Time magazine.
He says, I never miss my time.
Never miss it.
He's not just getting it because he's on the cover.
No.
I mean, he's proud that he's on the cover, obviously, but he would get it anyway, even if he wasn't on the cover.
Because even psychopaths have a hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than killing people.
That's right. Yeah.
And doing weird things with their bodies.
Yeah, among other things. Yeah, again, airport security very lax. George is on the plane by accident and they take off. Kramer gets thrown off on that flight, obviously. The prisoner's in the toilet unguarded and he grabs George quickly when no one's looking and beats him.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see what happens.
No.
But I mean, George doesn't look too worse for wear. You know, when he's on the plane and he's yelling in the window, he's like, Kramer!
Yeah.
As he's flying to wherever he's going. Like, he's not bloodied and bruised or anything. He looks a
No.
bit disheveled. So I would assume that one of the guards escorting the prisoner through the airport when he gets his magazine, even though he's in the toilet alone, I'm sure they were standing guard, maybe just outside. Well, I mean, you don't actually see them when George goes
No,
in there.
you don't.
But
Yeah.
I reckon they would have been pretty close by.
Yeah.
And, you know, they would have heard something going on in there. I don't think it would have been if there was any fight or tussle, I don't think it would have lasted.
No. I think what probably would have happened is maybe like the serial killer was like threatening like to get the Time magazine off him and George was probably like, no, I'm not giving you the... Like even with his life being threatened, he probably still didn't relent.
George's stubbornness knows no bounds.
No, but even when his life is on the line. And I feel like probably maybe one of the security overheard all the staff and then security just jumped in and grabbed him.
Yeah. Because, like I said, when you see George's face in the window,
it was probably moments before they jumped in.
Yeah.
I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Probably like a moment later they came in.
Yeah. Because I think if he was in there for 10 or 20 seconds, you know, he would have gotten a black, you know, there would have been some physical damage. And there's nothing wrong with him. His hair just looks a bit disheveled. He looks more disheveled because he's on a plane rather than like damaged physically.
I think also because they wanted to make it comedic as well. I think it probably would have been a bit too dark if George was like beaten within an inch of his life and he looked very bloodied and bruised. I think they wanted to make it more comedic, you know, so Jason gave like a comedic performance in that scene with the Kramer.
Yeah.
So probably that too.
I was wondering about the caption on the Time magazine cover. It says caught. Do you think he had been arrested for, you know, assuming he's a serial killer and he became a fugitive, or he'd never been arrested for his murders, but they were just trying to catch him?
I think the latter.
Right.
I think he might have been a suspect.
Yep.
Like, I don't really watch too many or read too much things about serial killers, but I'm guessing he probably committed the murders when he was younger, and then probably he didn't want to arouse too much suspicion, so he moved states, got another like low-paying job, committed a couple other murders, etc., etc., etc. Now, I feel like with like forensics, you know, technology being like improved in the 80s and the 90s, I feel like the FBI had the technology to really catch him, and maybe they found like a blood sample on something, and then they traced it back to him. He might have already had a criminal record. Maybe he got done for like low-level crime.
He seems like a pretty aggressive guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe he got done for like assault and battery or something.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, even shackled, you know, with two prison guards, he sort of threatens George openly in public. He's like, you know, a blurb? You're a blurb.
You're a blurb.
And he starts kicking and stuff, you know, to try and get George. So I think he's got quite an aggressive nature.
Yeah, I think it's the first time he's been arrested for the mass murders.
Right.
But I think he's probably had a criminal record for something else. And then they traced his, like, with the technology, traced his samples, blood, semen, whatever, back to him.
Yep.
And then they found him a match, fingerprints, whatever, and then they're like, yeah, he's the killer.
Gotcha.
And then he confessed to the other murders. Like, yeah, I did him. I killed 10, 20 people. It's like, all right, cool.
Yep.
All right. And he's done. And he was probably going to get transported to, like,
maximum security.
Yep.
Yeah, assuming he got prosecuted in New York State. I don't think they've got the death penalty, so probably life without parole or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
In a maximum security prison, you know, 23 hours a day in his room and 1 hour a day for exercise and sunlight.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Something like that.
For that egregious crimes, or those egregious crimes that he committed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And all the Time magazines he wants.
Indeed. Anyway, do you have anything else on the prisoner?
No, nothing about him.
Any other characters?
Yeah, I've got a few notes on the Sky Captain. I didn't know what a Sky Captain was before this. We don't have them here in Australia.
No.
And I've never even seen them in international airports, or I've seen like baggage handlers, but not out the front of the airport. And did a bit of research, and apparently, I don't know if they still exist. I guess they do. But in the 90s at least, or up until the 90s, they were kind of like concierges for your bags, where you turn up to the airport and then they sort of accelerate the check-in process for you. So you just go up to them, you give them your bags, you tip them. They do all that annoying administrative stuff that you have to do, pre-boarding a flight, and they just accelerate it for you. But if you don't want to spend the money, or if you've got time or whatever, you do it yourself. They're just kind of like they're an optional, fancy extra.
Yeah, but actually, funnily enough, when I was in the US, we flew from Vegas, the airport McCarran, I think it's called, McCarran Airport to LAX. And at McCarran, there was actually a couple of Sky Captains out the front.
Oh.
Yeah, and they had like the bags and you could do it. But there were a lot of automated ones, like automatic baggage drops inside. Yep. So most people were using them. Not many people were using the Sky Caps. So yeah, but I think I saw one or two at the front. Yeah, well, yeah. But there were barely anyone there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Probably easy just to put it on like an automatic.
I probably have seen them or something equivalent, but I fucking hate airports.
Yeah,
so I think I've blocked every airport experience out of my mind because I just despise airports.
Especially now with COVID.
Oh, just in general. Yeah. COVID or not, airports to me are just the worst. It's just, I just hate them.
You can't stand them.
No.
But yeah, no, I feel like the Sky Captain was probably lying when he says he gets $5 a bag.
Yeah, because he looks around to see if anyone's listening. He's like, for people like you, $5 a bag. And he
even says to them, it looks like you guys don't look like you know what you're doing.
Yeah. So I think he's trying to get one up on them, and Elaine's onto him and doesn't like being called out.
Yeah.
So in revenge, he sends her bags to Honolulu.
And a nice little touch at the end of the episode when, Elaine says, I can't find my bags, and it cuts to Honolulu Airport, and there's like a wreath on Elaine's bag, and there's the like Hawaiian music playing in the background. And it's going through the conveyor belt. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it is
nice
good.
touch.
Yeah. No, I really like the Sky Captain. He's only in the one scene, but he's got sort of a lot of sass, a lot of attitude, doesn't take shit. Even though he's trying to swindle them, I don't know, something about him. He's good. I like his attitude.
Yeah, he's fun.
Yeah. The final secondary characters I've got some notes on, just the two flight attendants.
Sure. I didn't get their credit.
Yeah. I looked on both of their name badges. The only one that I could make out was the first class flight attendant, and it says R. Harris. So her name's Rachel Harris or Rochelle Harris or something like that. Rochelle Harris.
Rochelle.
Yeah. The male flight attendant, the coach flight attendant.
Oh, the really snarky one.
Yeah, super sassy.
Yes.
I don't think he's sassy to people in general because he treats Jerry very well. He greets him very pleasantly and politely.
Right. It's just Elaine.
Yeah, well, I think it's just coach people.
Or coach people, yeah. He sees them as inferior.
Yeah.
Or maybe he normally does like first class shifts and he got shifted to do coach and he's like, I hate
yeah, he's a bit dirty.
Yeah.
But yeah, he seems to really have it in for Elaine, and Elaine sort of doesn't do herself any favours.
Well, Elaine gives him a hard time a bit too.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. He's more rude to her than Elaine is back to him.
Yeah.
But I just like him. He just doesn't take any shit, doesn't care.
No.
Just like whatever, sit in your seat, shut up, eat your food, fuck off. Like,
that's right. Doesn't fuck around. Do you have any other characters?
Just the first class flight attendant. Again, R. Harris, just complete opposite. Very pleasant, very polite. Seems to know a lot about French cooking. I mean, it would be a requirement of her job.
Yeah.
And a lot about flowers. She comments on the flower arrangements in the bathroom and the different floral notes that they can smell.
Yes, and wine from the Tuscany region.
Yeah, that's right. Tuscany.
From Tuscany.
Yeah.
Ooh,
on tonight's menu, we have Chateaubriand, which I didn't know what that was, and apparently it's a way to cook steak or some sort of meat in French. It's like a cooking method.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm guessing probably butter.
Briand, yeah, probably.
Yeah, brioche butter, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, if you're French and like French cooking or like French cooking, let us know.
Yeah, please.
Yep, or I could just look it up, whatever.
Indeed.
And I do like how she's very perceptive. I think she runs a very tight first class because as soon as Elaine sits down, and she's not roaming the first class like path, but she sees Elaine. I reckon maybe she was sitting, how during nighttime and stuff, the attendants tend to like sit up the front. Maybe she just keeps an eye out, like she peeks out the front curtain to check up on the first class passengers. Maybe she saw like Elaine's silhouette on the other end of the first class section, like sneak in and sit down because she's onto her straight away.
Oh yeah.
Within 3 or 4 seconds of Elaine closing her eyes, she taps on her, and you don't even hear her approach. You just see a hand hand reach out. It's like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, so I reckon she's very perceptive, very good at her job.
Plus, there's not as many first-class customers as Coach.
No.
So she's probably
You would notice an empty seat being filled all of a sudden.
There's probably like a dozen customers that she has to take care of.
Yeah.
You know, compared to like the 100 in the back.
And I do vaguely recall, I think there are more than 1 or 2 empty seats, you know, when it has the scenes in the first class.
Yeah,
Like you see the random empty seats. So, yeah, very perceptive.
Yeah,
and
she knows.
onto it.
She is indeed.
Yep.
Actually, just a quick side note before we go to break, I really liked Elaine's physicality in this episode. I think JLD's like, we always talk about Kramer and Michael Richards' physical performances. I loved, like, especially Elaine being in Coach, you know, bumping into chairs, bumping into people, trying to get to her seat. I think that's just fantastic physical comedy from JLD.
Yeah, she sold the awkward experience that is a packed flight that doesn't have much room, where you sort of stumble over people and people aren't like very willing to let you out. I've had similar experiences where, you know, you've got to go to the loo and they've just fallen asleep and they're like, you know, it's
many
like,
times for me too.
Yeah, and they take it personally. It's just like, mate, we're all stuck in here. We've all got to sort of help each other out, make it as comfortable as possible. And her annoyance is very relatable.
Yeah.
You know, when she climbs out of her seat over the guy with the luggage, the male passenger, and one of the guys like, and she gets right up to his face and she's like,
yeah.
I mean, I would never do that.
No.
But just how frustrating it is when people are like, I don't know, it's like, we're all uncomfortable.
Of course.
Like, just suck it up.
And then right at the end, you know, Elaine is trying to get back to her seat after coming back from first class. She doesn't even try to be polite anymore to the guy. She just yells while he's asleep, hey!
She just goes, hey!
Hey! Yeah, she just doesn't care.
Yeah, the first couple of times she's like, oh, I'm really sorry, excuse me, can I get in? But by the end, she's just had enough. She doesn't
done.
care.
Yeah, I love that. So, yeah, just a side note about the episode that I really liked.
I really agree as well.
Indeed. Anyway, let's take one more break, and when we come back, we are going to rank the airport in our episodes we have done so far, and we're going to reveal if any of today's secondary characters make our top 20.
So he says, squeeze your breasts together. And I say, I thought this was an ad for shoes.
Oh, my.
Is that the new Esquire?
Yeah.
Turn to page 146.
Oh. Wow. Coming out of the shower. It's a good thing they gave you that washcloth to cover yourself up. What is this an ad for?
See those wrinkled jeans slung over the chair? Way in the background, out of focus.
Now, Stephen, out of 157 episodes that we have done so far, we are, like we said at the start, at the tail end of Binblebask, finishing up early this year. Where does the airport sit for you, my friend?
It sits at number 66.
66, very good.
Yeah, so not a mind-blowing episode, not a bad episode. Liked all the secondaries. I thought some of the storyline was a tiny bit weak. Jerry's storyline didn't really care for.
No.
I mean, the point of Jerry scenes was to sort of punctuate how much Elaine was suffering.
That's right.
In contrast.
Yeah. The scene would go from, like, juxtaposed from Elaine's bad experiences to Jerry's opposite experience, like his good experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a pretty common dynamic in Seinfeld where Jerry sort of comes out, you know, even Steven at the end, as he says, and everyone else kind of suffers around him. And I don't know, in this episode, it was frustrating. Like, normally that's reliable and, you know, it's funny, but the fact that Kramer loses money and gets potentially, you know, blacklisted from flying, you know, George gets potentially beaten up by a serial killer, you know, Elaine has to suffer a bunch of insufferable instances in Coach, and Jerry just sort of like swans through the episode and nothing, you know, and at the end he gets a supermodel's phone number or a near supermodel's phone number. And it was a bit frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, it would have been good for Jerry to suffer maybe once or twice, just slightly. But yeah, overall, like you said before, I liked the playful kind of friendly banter between George and Kramer throughout the episode.
Yeah, me too.
And also Jerry and Elaine at the start. But yeah, pretty good. What about you?
Yeah, number 77. So like you, not a mind-blowing episode. It's an enjoyable bottleneck. I do like the bottleneck episodes where they're, you know, out of, you know, the usual surrounds of Jerry's apartment and Monk's, etc. Yeah, I felt like the Kramer Grossbard thing, I felt like it was just kind of like shoehorned in just to bring Kramer to the airport. I mean, there was probably no need for Kramer to come. I mean, George probably could have done everything by himself. You know, he could have had the serial killer storyline with him and, you know, all that stuff.
But then he wouldn't have said, John Grossbard.
Yeah, that's true. The bell tolls for thee, you know, great line. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, there were a few other things that could have been a bit better, but I did like Elaine's subplot. You do make a good point about Jerry. I mean, nothing really happens for him, but at the end of the day, he does get like a new girlfriend for the next episode, and that's when everything goes to shit. So it is like even Steven. So the airport, everything good goes for him, but in the pick, everything goes bad for him.
That's true.
So everything does even out, but over 2 episodes.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah. So it does. He is always even Steven.
Yep.
Regardless. But yeah, I mean, some things could have been better, but I did enjoy the episode.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Any of the secondaries appear in your top 20?
No, none for me. What about you, buddy?
No, but shout out to the Sky Captain.
Oh, yeah, he was wicked.
Yep.
Loved him. Anyway, that was another episode of Bidwabast. Thank you so much for listening. We are in the year 2021, and we have so many exciting things Stephen and I are going to do over the year. We are finishing up But I Don't Want to Be a Secondary Character in March, and we've got some bonus stuff coming out, including a season 11. It's an original series where Stephen and I read out an episode of Seinfeld that we've written in the, set in the 20 years or so after the events of the finale. So that episode 1, will be coming out on Friday, the 15th of January, 2021. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Every Friday from then, and that's on top of our normal Wednesday episodes of this, of which this is the first one of this year.
So you'll be hearing us from next week, or this week rather. You'll be hearing us twice a week for the next 10 or so weeks.
That's right, until the end. And after Bibblebus, we've got lots of other things that we're working on, things on the boil, and we'll reveal those in time. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch, you can email bidwabastpodcast@gmail.com. Check us out on social media, and you can support us financially, as we said, on Patreon or via PayPal. Non-financially as well. If you don't want to commit to any money, that's fine as well. You can listen to all of our episodes and rate us or review us on your podcast app of choice. And finally, we do run the biggest Seinfeld community on Facebook, Seinfeldisms. We're up to about 116,000 members now, so check that out if you want to join the fun.
Indeed. And next week, we are traveling to season 7, and we're talking about The Doll.
The Doll.
And its secondary characters.
Classic episode.
Yes, another classic from season 7 with that doll that looks exactly like Estelle Harris.
Creepy.
Very creepy indeed. Anyway, you take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll catch you next week.